We're talking to Dr. Leonard Madu, who's given us some information relative to the African world, the scattering of Africans literally all over the world. And of course, Dr. Madu, before we left, you were giving us an overview in terms of where Africans, for the most part, are situated. And I must say that they are situated in such numbers that we never realized that they might have been there, but we certainly didn't realize that you're talking about the hundreds of thousands in these particular areas. Let's continue that.
Well, how are these Africans treated, in the countries where they currently reside in terms of political and, social order? For example, let's take the case of Dominican Republic.
Okay.
Take the case of a guy called Jose Francisco Peña Gomez. Peña Gomez was a long-time mayor of Santo Domingo, the capital. His parents were Haitian, so he's very black, But he was the most popular politician in the country. He was a member of a Socialist International, a close friend of former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres, He ran for election a few years ago against, an icon in Dominican Republic called Balagua, who has been president for a long time. He won the election. Everybody knew he did. But because they didn't want a black president, they rigged the election against him. 4 years later, he ran against a nobody in Dominican politics, called Leonard Fernandez. Everybody knew that Peña Gomez won, but they rigged it to prevent him, because of his skin, of becoming president of the country. So in a country even like the Dominican Republic, that's predominated by blacks and mestizos. Yeah, the mestizo elite still looks down on the blacks. In the Spanish colonies, the mixed blood, they call them mestizos, or the British call them mulattoes. So the mestizos in Dominican Republic, think they are superior to dark-skinned Haitians. That's an example. In Colombia, you have about 5 million blacks, But what happened, or what has been happening, is that the official census never counted blacks in the country.
Okay.
He never
so
did.
They're not visible. They're invisible for all practical purposes.
Exactly. They're invisible for all practical purposes. Okay? There are about 4,000 and some legislators. 80 are black in the country. Okay. Now, take the example of Peru. The same. Most of the menial jobs and all that are reserved for blacks only, second only to the indigenous group. That was what gave rise, to a guerrilla warfare that lasted a whole lot of years, called the Shining Path. That was a rebellion of the indigenous people against the hegemony of the white elite. You go to Ecuador, the same. They're relegated to the worst, menial jobs, no civil rights. The only way a black person could be recognized in Ecuador is if you're a soccer player.
That's the only
exactly, only avenue of social mobility. In Cuba, even as hard as the socialist revolution, tried to equalize, the racial, imbalance, by trying to promote a whole lot of blacks. But still, if you look at the Cuban National Assembly or the Cuban Politburo, you hardly see any blacks in there. In fact, one of the highest ranking blacks in the country was Theophilus Stevens.